Which is your dream car? Is it a Lambo or a Porsche? Well, if it's a budget-friendly car, you will have many more options as well. But if we're talking about the middle class, things are pretty much a mess, and they might have to put off their plans to buy a brand new car. That naturally makes us all wonder, why exactly is the middle class no longer able to afford a car? The car market is in an abyss with no exit door. It all has condensed down to the fact that people will find it more and more difficult to pay their car loans or even purchase a new one. Now, we know the economy has observed more hills and valleys than the Rocky Mountains. The sector that would face a great deal of dilemma since the economy is prickly would be the middle class. If you analyze the current economic situation, you can see that the fiscal clouds are darkening on the horizon. We have come long past the fact that a car is a luxury for an American household. While it was simply a dream a few decades back, it has now become a cornerstone of the American lifestyle, from coast to coast. When the living expense is constantly increasing, wages should also follow the trend. However, that is not what is happening. The wages are stubbornly stagnant, and that developed a wide gap that has become tedious for families to bridge. As the recession rumors are swirling around, it's natural that the whole scenario shifts from being favorable to being pessimistic. To keep up with the inflation and economic crisis, the automobile industry also had to deal with quite a turmoil. So this meant the automobile material prices went up, and the market also had to catch up with the price hike to have positive sales. If one desires to buy a car now, they will have to spend much more than what they used to almost 2 years back. During the pandemic, the automobile industry expected an upcoming crash. To prepare for an impending crash, they began preparing. Semiconductor chips are the magic key required for smooth functioning of any electrical gadgets or products. To cope with a then certain low demand, the manufacturers slowed down the production. These chips are the ones that are used in the electric vehicles as well. This wasn't the only case for the EV sector. The conventional car sector also went through the same. Car parts and raw materials required to manufacture a conventional car also had a production limit. How does this affect the consumer world? Well, the automobile industry did not suffer a tragic fate during the pandemic. The sector recovered almost immediately. Now, a massive demand was created. However, the automobile industry could not meet the demands due to a drop in production limit. Since the demand was high and the availability was low, this caused a price hike. The otherwise humble automobile industry now naturally became a significant financial burden for the consumer world, not to mention the interest rates which were shooting up at a frightening pace. Evidently, the scales of affordability seemed to be tipping precariously. So the only option left seemed to be the used car sector. Well, affording a used car also seemed to be out of the option. Given that more consumers and in fact authorities have been too focused about eliminating carbon emission concerns, they required an eco-friendly option. That gave the EV sectors the upper hand, and now they became the new trend everyone loved. From an average oil-phased car to EV wasn't exceptionally easier than what everyone thought. Barely a 25% increase in price hike was only observed. On top of that, the users didn't have to spend money in oil pumps. With a single charge, they could travel to anywhere, and charging stations were also found almost at every nook and corner. So, the consumers naturally preferred electric vehicles over conventional ones. As we told you, the industry was finding it too hard to cope with the decreased availability of semiconductors. The situation was further aggravated with the increase in demand. This naturally led to a price hike. The majority of the citizens were already struggling to pay off their car loans. Big names in the industry like Toyota and Nissan have all in fact stated owning a car for a middle-class family would remain a distant dream, and the prices wouldn't go to what it was before the pandemic. To be honest, we already knew where this was heading, as we saw a squeeze in household budgets. High inflation and interest rates, along with the recession rumors, added fire to the turmoil. We already mentioned about the sudden hike in car prices. For the situation to be this worse than thought, what exactly happened? Well, back in 2017, the car price was only $36,000. Fast forward into 2023, a new car would cost you a budget more than $50,000. That means the car prices have taken a leap forward, say almost by 14 times, and this didn't go well for the consumer world. Taking into consideration that the wages remain unhinged throughout the course, no exit door can be found in the vicinity. From 2017 to 2023, the wages have only gone from $62,000 to $64,000. Doesn't that already sound like not much of a change? No wonder why many end up borrowing from people, or at times take a car loan, which only ends up to be a burden for them later. Repairing the car is completely off from the equation, as it would cost a fortune in the current situation. Big names like Ford and General Motors also began selling expensive cars in less numbers. The demand is clearly outstripping the supply. Owning a car is simply becoming out of the reach for the ordinary due to all sorts of reasons. On top of that, recession concerns are lurking around the corner. A middle-class family has to cope with high utility bills, education of kids, and basic needs. Due to the recession right round the corner, many big corporate companies focus on cutting down the cost. As a means to do so, they began laying off many employees. Companies like Amazon, Tesla, Uber, Microsoft, and Google were engaged in a mass layoff that shook the world. When many lost their jobs, they couldn't repay the loans, and the banks now tightened their leash, making it harder for them to almost breathe. Imagine being in a matrix where affording basic necessities seems to be totally impossible. The car loans and the other EMIs would only aggravate the situation further. So the middle-class families now took off the plan to buy a new car off the list. Most of the consumers stated that they used to be comfortable with the loan repayment part in the beginning. However, now every bill that arrives feels like a new punch. It feels like we're one unexpected expense away from disaster. This isn't an isolated issue anymore. Almost the entire nation echo this dreadful sentiment, which reflects the stark reality of the deteriorating economic climate. Due to this very reason, a new trend naturally appeared on the horizon: missed car payments. According to several sources, the number of auto loans that fell into serious delinquency has hit record high. Economists and the consumer world are perplexed about the current scenario and believe that the situation would only get worse with time. Now, you all might be wondering, is there a silver lining? Is relief on the horizon? It seems new ideas and revolution are brewing in the automobile industry to give wings to the middle-class dream. New schemes and budget vehicles would hit the market shortly, according to sources. A scheme would soon roll out that would bring clarity about vehicle ownership. The current recession dust is expected to settle in a year or two. When we go past this dubious and shaky situation, a better market condition is expected to unfold. And just as this exciting news begins to unfold, and as hope seems to glimmer for families struggling with car payments, a sudden twist arises. A development that could change everything, but that's a tale for another time. Are you planning to buy a car anytime soon? Well, you can follow the 1/10th rule for purchasing a car. It might be possible for you to navigate through this economic slowdown. To find out more about it, hit the subscribe button and turn on the post notification. Until next time, see you all.